My name is Victoria Elaine Morrison, and I'm 70 years old. For 45 years, I was a ghost in my own life. The kind of ghost that happens when you marry into money, give up your dreams to play the perfect wife, and smile through every insult while your soul slowly dies. I was invisible in a house full of mirrors. But here's what they didn't know. Invisible women see everything, and when you finally open your eyes after decades of keeping them closed, you see things clearly enough to burn down empires. My husband thought I was harmless. That was his first mistake. His second mistake was underestimating a woman who had nothing left to lose. But let me take you back to where it all started, because this story isn't just about revenge. It's about resurrection. I want to share something with you before we go further. If you feel my words reaching into places you thought were silent, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And tell me, which city are you listening from? Because I need to know how far a woman's voice can travel when she finally decides to use it. Help me build this community so we can bring more truthful stories for you. Stories that matter. Stories that might save someone's life. Now, let me tell you how I became invisible and how I came back to life. It was 1979 when I met Marcus Blackwood. I was 25 years old, working as a legal secretary at Patterson & Associates downtown. I had dreams then, big ones. I wanted to go to law school, become an attorney, fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. I was saving every penny, living in a tiny apartment with my best friend Simone, eating ramen noodles and dreaming of courtrooms. Marcus was 30, a newly minted attorney at the firm, tall and confident with dark eyes that seemed to see right through you. He came from old money, the kind of family that had buildings named after them, that summered in the Hamptons and wintered in Aspen. His mother, Constance Blackwood, was a fixture in society pages, always photographed at charity galas in pearls, and that cold, practiced smile. Marcus pursued me like I was the only woman in the world. He'd bring coffee to my desk, stay late to walk me to my car, ask about my dreams with what seemed like genuine interest. When he asked me out, I hesitated. I knew we came from different worlds. But he was persistent. "Victoria," he said one evening as we left the office, "I don't care about backgrounds or bank accounts. I care about you, your intelligence, your passion, the way you light up when you talk about justice and fairness. That's what matters." I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Expensive restaurants where I felt out of place in my department store dresses. Weekend trips to his family's lake house. Nights where he'd listen to me talk about tort reform and civil rights cases, nodding along like my opinions mattered. Meeting Constance was like stepping into ice water. She received me in the drawing room of their estate, and yes, they actually called it a drawing room. Sitting ramrod straight in a wingback chair that might as well have been a throne. "Victoria Chen," she said, looking me up and down. "That's an interesting combination. Chinese mother, I presume?" "My mother was from Taiwan," I said, keeping my voice steady. "She immigrated when she was 18. "How industrious," Constance said, the word dripping with condescension. "And your father?" "He was a mechanic. He passed away when I was 16. "I see." She sipped her tea, pinky extended. "Marcus tells me you work as a secretary." "A legal secretary. I'm saving for law school." Something flickered in her eyes. Amusement, maybe, or pity. "Though I do hope you understand that if you and Marcus were to marry, continuing to work would be quite unnecessary. The Blackwood name comes with certain expectations and standards to maintain." Marcus laughed it off later. "Mother's from a different generation. She'll come around once she gets to know you." She never did. We married in the spring of 1980 in a ceremony that Constance controlled down to the napkin colors. My mother, Mei Chen, flew in from California. She pulled me aside the morning of the wedding, her small hands gripping mine with surprising strength. "Xiao Mei," she said, using my childhood name. "Are you certain? That woman, his mother, she looks at you like you are nothing." "Marcus loves me, Mama. He's not his mother." Men become their mothers, child, where they spend their whole lives trying to please them. Either way, you will be caught in the middle. I kissed her cheek and walked down the aisle anyway. The first few years were tolerable. Not happy exactly, but tolerable. Marcus was building his career at his father's firm, working 100-hour weeks. I got pregnant with our son Alexander 10 months after the wedding. Then our daughter Sophia arrived 2 years later. I never made it to law school. Every time I brought it up, Marcus had a reason why it wasn't the right time. Alexander was too young. Sophia needed me. His career was at a critical juncture. Eventually I stopped asking. Constance was a constant presence. She'd arrive unannounced, walking through our home like she owned it, which technically she did. The house was a wedding gift that came with strings attached. "Victoria, darling," she'd say, inspecting my living room, "you really must speak to the housekeeper about the dust on the crown molding. Standards, dear. We have standards." Or she'd comment on the children. "Alexander has your nose, unfortunately. Let's hope Sophia takes after the Blackwood side." Marcus never defended me. He'd either ignore it, or worse, laugh. "Mother's just particular. You know how she is." She was telling me every single day that I didn't belong, that I was a mistake Marcus had made that she'd have to tolerate but never accept. By our 10th anniversary, I had no career, few friends. Constance had a way of making other women exclude me from their circles, and a marriage that felt more like a business arrangement than a partnership. Marcus was polite, distant, always working. We'd become strangers who shared a house and a last name. But I was good at pretending. I attended charity luncheons and smiled when women asked me to chair diversity committees, as if my Asian heritage was my only qualification. I hosted dinner parties where Marcus's colleagues would discuss cases and never once ask my opinion, even though I'd worked in law and probably knew as much as their junior associates. I raised our children, managed our household, and made myself smaller and smaller until I practically disappeared. The invisible years, I call them now. Ages 35 to 65. 3 decades where I existed but didn't live, where I breathed but didn't speak, where I watched my dreams collect dust like forgotten furniture in an attic. And then everything changed. It started with a phone call on a Tuesday morning. I was 65 years old, sitting in the sunroom of our estate. By then we'd moved into an even larger house in Ashford Hills, the most exclusive neighborhood in the city. I was reading, trying to lose myself in someone else's story, since I'd given up on writing my own. Marcus's phone was on the side table. He'd gone upstairs to shower. The screen lit up with a text message. "When can I see you again? Isabel." I stared at that message for a long time. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just felt this strange, cold clarity washing over me, like I'd been underwater my whole life, and suddenly broke the surface. I picked up his phone, no passcode. Marcus had always been arrogant enough to think he didn't need one. I scrolled through messages with this Isabel woman, months of them, intimate, detailed, planning secret meetings. Then I found others, 3 other women, all younger, all working at his firm or connected to his professional circle. Years of messages, hotel receipts in his email, credit card statements showing jewelry purchases I'd never received. I went through his entire digital life that morning, 2 hours of clicking and scrolling and screenshotting, and with each discovery, I felt something inside me that had been sleeping for decades start to wake up. I called Simone, my best friend from the old days, the one I drifted away from because Marcus said she was too negative, too feminist, too threatening to our marriage, the one who tried to warn me 20 years ago, and I'd pushed away because I couldn't handle the truth. "Victoria?" Her voice cracked with surprise. "Is that really you?" "It's me, Simone. I need to see you, today." We met at a small cafe across town. Simone had aged beautifully, silver hair cut short, sharp eyes behind stylish glasses, an energy about her that spoke of a life fully lived. She'd become a successful paralegal, married briefly, then divorced, and seemed completely comfortable in her own skin. What did he do? I told her everything. The messages, the affairs, the years of being dismissed and diminished and erased. Simone listened, her jaw tightening with each detail. When I finished, she reached across the table and gripped my hands. "Victoria, I have been waiting 30 years for this moment. Not because I wanted you to get hurt, but because I wanted you to finally see what everyone else has been seeing. Marcus is a narcissist who married you because you made him look good, diverse, progressive, modern. And then he spent 3 decades making sure you never became powerful enough to threaten him. The words hit like hammer blows because they were true. I don't know what to do, I whispered. I'm 65 years old. I haven't worked in 40 years. I have no money of my own. I have nothing. That's where you're wrong. Simone's voice was fierce. You have something Marcus doesn't think you have. You have intelligence, time, and the element of surprise. Now the question is, are you going to use them? How? I don't even know where to start. She smiled. You start by becoming a student again. This time, you're learning how to save yourself. That day changed everything. Simone became my teacher, my strategist, my reminder of who I used to be before I let Marcus and Constance convince me I was nothing. She taught me about documentation first. Everything Marcus does, every lie, every hidden asset, every affair, you document it all. Screenshots, photos, dates, times. Build a case like you would if you were the attorney you should have been. I started that very day. Created email accounts Marcus didn't know about. Started photographing documents when he was at work. Credit card statements, bank records, property deeds, tax returns. Every piece of paper in his home office I methodically documented. I discovered things that shocked even Simone. Marcus wasn't just hiding affairs. He was hiding money. A lot of it. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Properties owned through shell companies. Investment accounts registered to Constance, but funded by Marcus's earnings. This is financial abuse, Simone said when I showed her what I'd found. He's been controlling you, keeping you dependent, while he builds an empire you know nothing about. This is illegal in so many ways. What do I do? First, you get your own money. Start building an escape fund he doesn't know about. Marcus gave me an allowance. God, even typing that word now makes me sick. $3,000 a month for household expenses, groceries, personal items. Like I was a child being given spending money. I became a master of thrift. Suddenly I discovered sales, coupons, discount stores. I started saving $600, $700 a month. I hid cash in places Marcus would never look. Inside tampon boxes. In the pocket of winter coats during summer. In photo albums of my parents he'd never opened. Simone connected me with a woman named Helena Vasquez, who lived on the other side of town. Helena was 78 years old, a retired accountant who'd escaped her own abusive marriage 20 years earlier. She'd built herself back from nothing, and now spent her retirement helping other women do the same. Victoria, Helena said when we met at her modest but beautiful home, I'm going to teach you what I wish someone had taught me 40 years ago. How to hide money, build credit, understand assets, and prepare for war. Because that's what this is going to be, war. Are you ready? I thought about 45 years of being invisible, about Constance's cruel comments and Marcus's casual dismissal, about the woman I'd been at 25 with fire in her belly and dreams in her heart. I'm ready. For the next 3 years I lived a double life. On the surface, I was still the perfect Blackwood wife. I attended galas, hosted dinner parties, smiled at Constance's insults. But underneath, I was building something Marcus couldn't see. Helena taught me about money, real money, not allowances. She taught me about financial planning, asset protection, divorce law. She loaned me books, connected me with resources, showed me how to think strategically. First rule, she said during one of our weekly meetings, open a bank account he doesn't know about. Different bank entirely. I did, used my mother's address in California for statements, started depositing my saved cash, $50 here, $100 there. It grew slowly but steadily. Second rule, build your own skills. You're 65, but you're not dead. What can you do? I thought about my old life, before Marcus. I was good at legal research, writing, analysis. Then get good at it again. I started taking online courses through the public library computers. Paralegal certification, legal research, document analysis. I told Marcus I was taking cooking classes or joining book clubs. Instead, I was rebuilding the professional skills I'd abandoned 4 decades ago. Within a year, I'd gotten my paralegal certification. Started doing contract work for a small firm downtown. Cash payments, everything under the table. $200, $300 a week. It wasn't much, but it was mine. More importantly, it was proof I could support myself. By the time I turned 67, I had $42,000 in my secret account, a skill set I could use to earn money, and a growing file of evidence about Marcus's hidden assets and affairs. But I still didn't have anywhere to go. "You need a safe place," Helena said. "Somewhere that's yours, that he doesn't know about." "I can't afford to rent anything decent, and Marcus would find out if I tried," I said. Helena smiled. "Then don't rent. Buy. Have you seen housing prices? Have you looked outside Ashford Hills?" She showed me a listing. Riverside, a working-class neighborhood 30 miles away. A small 2-bedroom bungalow, old but structurally sound. $165,000. I don't have that kind of money. But I do. Helena pulled out paperwork. "I'll loan you the down payment. $35,000. You get a mortgage for the rest using your paralegal income as proof of employment. We set up an LLC to purchase it. Use your mother's maiden name, Chen Holdings. Marcus will never connect it to you." "Why would you do this for me?" Her eyes got distant. "Because when I needed help, there was no one. I spent 5 years sleeping in my car, working 3 jobs, rebuilding from nothing because I waited too long to plan my escape. You have a chance to do this right. Take it." It took 4 months to set everything up, but I bought that house in Riverside. My house. The first thing I'd owned in my own name since I'd married Marcus. I told him I'd joined a volunteer organization that met Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Instead, I drove to Riverside and turned that little bungalow into a home. Cleaned, painted, furnished it slowly with thrift store finds and estate sale treasures. The neighborhood was nothing like Ashford Hills. Real people lived there. Working families, retirees, immigrants, chasing the same dreams my parents had chased. My neighbors, Rosa and Thomas Martinez, were a retired couple who welcomed me warmly. "Managing the property for an out-of-state owner," I told them, maintaining the cover story. "Well, you're doing beautiful work," Rosa said, admiring the garden I'd planted. "They're lucky to have you." If only she knew I was the owner, that I was building a whole secret life right under my husband's nose. By my 68th birthday, I'd been gathering evidence for 3 years. What started as documentation of affairs had become a comprehensive map of Marcus's financial crimes. Because that's what I'd discovered. Marcus wasn't just a cheating husband, he was a criminal. It started when I noticed irregularities in his firm's billing records. Documents I'd photographed from his home office showed patterns that didn't make sense. Hours billed to clients for work that couldn't have been performed. Charges for services that seemed inflated or fabricated. I showed everything to Helena. She looked through the documents with her accountant's eye and went pale. "Victoria, this is fraud. Billing fraud, possibly tax evasion. Marcus has been overbilling clients for years, maybe decades." "How much are we talking about?" "Conservatively, $5 to $7 million over 20 years. I sat with that information, feeling sick. Marcus had built his entire career, his reputation, his empire, on lies and theft. What should I do? Helena was quiet for a long moment. "That's not my decision. But I'll tell you this, if you divorce him and this comes out later, you could be implicated as a beneficiary of the fraud. Better to come forward first, cooperate with authorities. It'll protect you legally and strengthen your position in the divorce." I hired an attorney then, Patricia Kenji, 48 years old, a fierce family law specialist with a reputation for winning impossible cases. She reviewed everything I'd gathered, 3 years of documentation, evidence of hidden assets, proof of infidelity, and now evidence of professional fraud. "Mrs. Blackwood," she said, "you've built an extraordinary case. Most clients come to me with nothing. You've created something airtight. But I need to ask, are you ready for what comes next? Because once we start this, there's no going back. Marcus's career will be destroyed. His reputation will be ruined. Your children will be caught in the middle. This will be war." I thought about standing in that sunroom 3 years ago, reading that text message, about 45 years of being made to feel like nothing, about the young woman I'd been with dreams of fighting for justice. "I'm ready," I said. I've been ready for 3 years. I was just waiting for the right moment. Patricia smiled. Good, but here's what we're going to do. We wait for Marcus to file first. What? Why would we do that? Because he will. Men like Marcus always do eventually. They get bored, find someone younger, decide to upgrade. When he does, he'll feel confident, careless. He'll assume you're helpless. That's when we strike with everything you've gathered. So I waited, continued my double life, performing as Mrs. Blackwood while building my escape. Continued working my paralegal job, growing my savings, strengthening my case. I didn't have to wait long. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon in March. I was 68 years old, at my house in Riverside, tending my garden. My phone rang. My mother's hospice nurse in California. Ms. Morrison, it's about your mother. May has taken a serious turn. The doctor believes you should come soon. My mother, my fierce, intuitive, complicated mother who'd warned me about Marcus 48 years ago, who'd told me I was making a mistake and watched me make it anyway. I drove straight to Ashford Hills, packed a bag. Marcus was in his study. My mother is dying. I need to go to California. He looked up from his laptop. How long will you be gone? I stared at him. My 73-year-old husband, still handsome in that practiced way, looking at me like I was inconveniencing him. Did you hear what I said? My mother is dying. I heard. I'm just saying she's 93, Victoria. She's had a good, long life. There's nothing you can do by sitting in a hospice room. The gala is important for the firm. Something inside me went very quiet and very cold. I'm going to California, I said. I'll be back when I'm back. I walked out before he could say another word. My mother was in a small hospice facility in Oakland, overlooking the bay where she'd worked in her youth. She looked tiny in the hospital bed, her skin paper-thin, but when I walked in, her eyes opened, sharp and clear. You came. Of course I came, Mama. Marcus let you? I actually laughed. Marcus doesn't get a vote anymore. Something shifted in her face. Good. I was worried I would die without seeing you stand up straight again. I stayed for 2 weeks. Sometimes Mama was lucid, sometimes she drifted, but when she was awake, we had the conversations we should have had decades ago. She told me about her own marriage, her own compromises, showed me a bank book I'd never known existed, $60,000 she'd saved over 50 years by skimming grocery money, doing alterations on the side, saving every penny she could. Every woman needs escape money, she said. I never needed mine, thank heaven, but I want you to have it now. Use it to finish what you've started. She told me where she'd hidden jewelry, pieces from her mother worth more than I'd imagined. Get them appraised properly, she said. Don't trust what dealers tell you first. Your grandmother was a seamstress for a wealthy family. They gave her these pieces when they died. Real jade, real gold, your inheritance. But the most important thing she gave me was a promise she made me make. Victoria Elaine, she said one evening, holding my hand with surprising strength. Promise me you won't die having lived only half a life. You've been drowning to keep that man afloat. Time to let him sink and swim to shore yourself. I promise, Mama. And promise you won't wait until you're my age to be free. You're 68. Could have 20, 30 more years. Live them fully. Live them for you. She died 3 days later with me holding her hand, just as dawn broke over the bay. I stayed for the funeral, handled her estate. The savings, the jewelry, a small property she owned. All told nearly $200,000. I put it all in my secret account, paid back Helena's loan with interest, had enough left to live on for years if I needed to. Then I flew home, arriving a day earlier than I'd told Marcus. Wanted to surprise him, to start fresh after my mother's death, to maybe find a way forward. I had no idea he'd already decided to throw me away. The taxi dropped me at the circular driveway at 4 in the afternoon. It was a beautiful spring day, the kind that made Ashford Hills look like something from a magazine. The magnolias were blooming. The lawn was perfectly maintained, and my entire life was scattered across it like garbage. Clothes, books, photographs, my grandmother's jade collection, my mother's old sewing machine, 45 years of existence dumped on the grass like trash, waiting for pickup. I stood there in my travel clothes, suitcase in hand, staring. The front door opened. Marcus walked out with a woman I recognized, Isabelle Laurent, one of the junior partners at his firm. She was wearing my silk bathrobe, the one Marcus had given me for our 40th anniversary. She looked uncomfortable, tugging it closed as she saw me. Behind them, Constance Blackwood emerged, 97 years old and still standing straight as a rod, that familiar cold smile on her face. "Victoria," Marcus said, as casually as discussing the weather. "You're back early." I found my voice. "What is this?" "This is overdue," Constance answered before Marcus could speak. "I told my son 48 years ago that you were a mistake, a phase, someone who would never belong in this family. He's finally come to his senses." Marcus had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "I filed for divorce 4 days ago while you were gone. The papers are somewhere in that pile. Our prenuptial agreement is very clear. You get your personal belongings and $75,000. That's more than generous considering you never contributed financially." The world tilted. I'd been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Had evidence, lawyers, money, a house of my own. But standing there in my grief clothes, my mother not even a week in the ground, looking at my life treated like trash, while my husband's mistress wore my robe, nothing prepared me for the cruelty of it. But I'd promised my mother, promised I wouldn't drown anymore. I set down my suitcase, walked calmly across the lawn to the nearest pile, found the divorce papers, read them quickly. Everything Marcus claimed was there. A prenuptial agreement I didn't remember signing, the $75,000 settlement, claims that I'd contributed nothing to the marriage, that I was entitled to nothing more. I looked up at the three of them standing on the porch like judges at my trial. "Did you wait until my mother died?" I asked quietly. "Was that strategic or just cruel?" Something flickered across Marcus's face. "Victoria, don't make this harder than it needs to be. We both know this marriage has been dead for years. I'm offering you a fair settlement. Take it and move on with dignity." Dignity, the word tasted bitter. "You throw my belongings on the lawn like trash and talk to me about dignity." "You didn't work," Constance interjected, her voice sharp as glass. "You lived in luxury paid for by my family's money. You raised children. Congratulations. That's what mothers do. You should be grateful Marcus is offering you anything at all." I looked at this woman who'd spent 48 years making me feel worthless. This woman who'd stolen my confidence piece by piece until I'd forgotten I ever had any. And something inside me shifted. Like a lock turning, like a door opening. "You're right, Constance," I said calmly. "I never could have achieved this lifestyle on my own. This house, this neighborhood, this performance of perfection." I turned to Marcus. "I'll take my belongings now. You said I have time?" He looked surprised by my calm. "You have until 6 o'clock. That's when the donation truck arrives for anything you leave behind." "That's all I need." I started gathering my things. Important documents, birth certificate, passport, my mother's jewelry, photo albums Marcus had carelessly tossed with old clothes, my grandmother's jade pieces, which he'd thrown in a box like they were worthless. My phone buzzed, a text from Patricia Kenji, my attorney. "Joint accounts emptied 2 hours ago. $287,000 transferred to his personal account. Emergency motion filed. Don't react." I kept packing, found my favorite books, my mother's Bible, things that mattered, ignored the three of them watching from the porch like spectators at an execution. A car pulled up. Alexander, my son, 43 years old, looking so much like Marcus but with my eyes. He got out, stared at the scene before him. "Mom." His voice was strangled. "What's happening?" "Your father is divorcing me," I said calmly, folding clothes into a suitcase. "Dad." Alexander looked up at the porch. "What the hell is this?" "This doesn't concern you, Alexander," Marcus said. "This is between your mother and me." "Doesn't concern me?" "Mom's stuff is all over the lawn like garbage." "Your mother will be fine. She's getting a generous settlement." "Generous?" Alexander was shouting now. "You're throwing her out like trash?" "Alexander, come inside," Constance commanded. Don't let her manipulate you with dramatics. My son looked between us, and I could see the war on his face. But I'd seen that look for years. He'd always been caught between loyalty to his father and love for his mother, never quite able to choose. "It's okay, sweetheart," I said quietly. "I'll be fine." "Where will you go?" he asked, and his voice cracked. "I have arrangements." Marcus laughed from the porch. "Arrangements? Victoria, you don't have anything. No job, no money, no prospects." I finished packing what I could carry, called a rideshare. While waiting, I stood on that perfect lawn, surrounded by the wreckage of 48 years, and felt something unexpected. Relief. The car pulled up. A young woman driving, maybe 26. She looked at the scene with wide eyes. "You okay, ma'am?" "I will be." I loaded my suitcases. Marcus called from the porch, his voice uncertain now. "Victoria, where are you going?" I looked back at him one last time. This man who'd convinced me to give up my dreams. This man who'd spent 48 years making me small. This man who thought he'd destroyed me. "I'm going home," I said. Then I got in the car and drove away from my golden cage forever. The driver's name was Maya, and she was studying law at the State University. We talked during the 30-mile drive to Riverside, and when I told her I'd wanted to be a lawyer once, her whole face lit up. "That's amazing. Why didn't you?" I looked out the window at the landscape changing from manicured estates to real neighborhoods. I let someone convince me I wasn't needed. Took me 48 years to remember I was wrong. She pulled up to my house on Willow Street. The little bungalow looked exactly as I'd left it 2 weeks ago. Garden blooming, porch swept, window boxes bright with flowers. Home. "This is beautiful," Maya said, helping me with my bags. "Thank you. It's mine. Actually mine." I gave her a $100 tip and my phone number. "When you graduate, call me. I know people who can help with job placement." After she left, I stood in my living room and let it wash over me. The silence, the peace, the absolute freedom of being in a space entirely my own. Then I called Patricia Kenji. "Victoria," she answered immediately. "Where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm home. My real home." "Good. Don't go back to Ashford Hills. Don't answer Marcus's calls. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., my office. We're filing an emergency motion to freeze all assets and contest that fraudulent prenup." "How did you know it was fraudulent?" "Because you told me 6 months ago I never signed a prenup. Marcus just created one, backdated it, and forged my signature." "Exactly. And Victoria, are you ready for war? Because that's what this will be." I thought about standing on that lawn in my grief clothes, about Constance's triumphant smile, about 48 years of being invisible. I've been ready for 3 years. I was just waiting for him to fire the first shot. That night I barely slept, not from anxiety, from anticipation. Everything I'd prepared for was finally happening. At 6 a.m., my doorbell rang. Through the window I saw Alexander's car. I opened the door. My son stood there looking like he hadn't slept either. "Mom, I had to find you. I called every hotel in 3 counties before I remembered you mentioned volunteering in Riverside. Checked property records as a long shot." He looked at my house, confusion and understanding dawning on his face. "This is yours? Actually yours?" "Come in, baby." We sat in my kitchen with the yellow walls I'd painted myself and the table I'd bought at an estate sale. I poured him coffee, waited. "I'm so sorry," he finally said. "For years I've watched Dad treat you like you were nothing, watched Grandmother tear you down. I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere, that you were adults." He looked up, tears in his eyes. "But yesterday, seeing your things on the lawn like garbage, Mom, I've been a coward." "No, sweetheart, you were caught between your parents. That's not the same thing. I want to help. Whatever you need. I'll testify. Alexander." I took his hand. "What's about to happen is going to get very ugly. Your father has been hiding assets, committing fraud. When it all comes out, his reputation will be destroyed. Grandmother will likely face consequences. The family name will be damaged. You need to think about what that means for you." "I don't care about the family name if it's built on hurting you. Think about your career, your connections." Mom, I'm a software engineer. I built my own company from scratch. Everything I have, I earned myself. What I can't rebuild is my integrity if I stand by and let Dad do this to you. I cried then, for the first time since Mama died. My son wrapped his arms around me, and I let myself be held. There's something else, he said when I'd composed myself. Sophia called me last night. My daughter, who'd taken Constance's side for years, who told me I was too sensitive about grandmother's comments, who distanced herself because my presence made family gatherings tense. What did she say? She saw Dad with Isabel at the house last night. Saw how they were together. He paused. She said Isabel was wearing your jewelry. That pearl necklace Dad gave you for your 65th birthday. Something cold settled in my chest. Even that, a gift I'd treasured, had just been something to pass along to the next woman. Sophia's not ready to take sides yet, Alexander continued. But she's starting to see. Give her time? I nodded. Some children needed to come to truth slowly. I understood that. Patricia Kenji's office was downtown, all glass and steel and serious purpose. She'd assembled a team. Herself, a forensic accountant named David Patel, and a private investigator named Rachel Foster. Let's start with what we know, Patricia said, spreading documents across the conference table. Marcus filed for divorce, claiming abandonment and financial non-contribution. He's presenting a prenuptial agreement allegedly signed 48 years ago that entitles you to only $75,000. David Patel, thin and sharp-eyed, opened his laptop. I've reviewed the prenup. The signature is clearly forged. Digital analysis shows the document was created 3 months ago, not 48 years ago. We can prove it's fake easily. Good, Patricia said. But that's just the beginning. David? He pulled up a spreadsheet. Based on Victoria's documentation, which is exceptional by the way, I've traced these assets acquired during the marriage. The primary residence in Ashford Hills, valued at $3.2 million. 4 commercial properties owned through Blackwood Holdings LLC, 2 office buildings, a retail complex, and a medical plaza. Combined value, approximately $11.4 million. He continued. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, $5.3 million. Investment accounts, retirement funds, various liquid assets, approximately $4.1 million. He looked up. Total marital assets, approximately $24.7 million. Marcus disclosed only $2.3 million in his divorce filing. The numbers hung in the air. $24.7 million. He'd hidden over $22 million. He's been planning this for over a decade, Rachel Foster, the private investigator, added. The offshore accounts show systematic transfers starting in 2012. The property holdings were established through Constance's name, but funded entirely by Marcus. We can trace every dollar. Patricia leaned forward. Victoria, this is financial abuse on a massive scale. In this state, you're entitled to 50% of all marital assets. That's $12.3 million, not $75,000. But here's the critical question. Do you want to just win the divorce, or do you want justice? What's the difference? Winning the divorce means exposing the hidden assets, getting your legal share, and walking away. Justice means reporting the billing fraud to the state bar and federal authorities. That means criminal prosecution. Marcus would face disbarment, potentially decades in prison. I thought about the evidence I'd gathered. The fraudulent billing, the inflated charges, the years of stealing from clients who'd trusted him. How many clients did he defraud? Rachel pulled out another file. We've documented at least 168 instances over 20 years. Conservative estimate of the total fraud, $6.2 million. Those are real people, I said quietly. People who trusted him, who paid him thinking they were getting honest representation. Yes, Patricia said, and if you report it, they'll be notified. Many will likely file civil suits. Marcus's law license will be revoked permanently. His reputation will be completely destroyed. I stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city where I'd lived invisible for 48 years. My mother made me promise not to live half a life anymore, I said. If I stay quiet about the fraud to make the divorce easier, I'm still choosing his comfort over doing what's right. I turned back. File everything, the divorce contest, the asset freeze, and the report to the authorities. All of it. Patricia smiled. That's what I was hoping you'd say. The emergency hearing was scheduled for Friday, 3 days after Marcus had thrown me out. I arrived at the courthouse with Patricia, wearing a navy suit I bought for my paralegal work. Simple, professional, mine. Marcus was there with his attorney, Leonard Ashcroft. Expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive sneer. Constance sat behind them, perfectly composed as always. When Marcus saw me, really saw me, something flickered across his face. Confusion. This wasn't the broken, helpless woman he'd expected. All rise for the Honorable Judge Michelle Nakamura. The judge was an Asian woman in her early 60s, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. I'd researched her carefully. Judge Nakamura had a reputation for destroying lawyers who tried to deceive her court. Leonard Ashcroft spoke first. All confident dismissal. Your Honor, this emergency motion is a transparent delay tactic by Mrs. Blackwood. My client has been more than generous in his settlement offer. Mr. Ashcroft, Judge Nakamura interrupted, her voice ice-cold. I've reviewed the preliminary filings. Your client disclosed $2.3 million in assets. Mrs. Blackwood's forensic accountant has documented over $24 million. Would you care to explain that discrepancy? Ashcroft faltered. Your Honor, those are alleged assets, unverified. They're verified, Patricia said, standing. We have property deeds, bank statements, offshore account records, and complete transaction histories, all entered as Exhibits A through R. Judge Nakamura looked at Marcus. Mr. Blackwood, did you or did you not purchase 4 commercial properties through an LLC registered to your mother during your marriage? Marcus shifted in his seat. Those were business investments, made with marital funds during your marriage, making them marital assets. Did you disclose them in your divorce filing? Silence. Mr. Blackwood, I asked you a question. No, Your Honor. And this prenuptial agreement you submitted, allegedly signed 48 years ago? Mrs. Blackwood's forensic expert has provided digital analysis proving it was created 3 months ago with a forged signature. Care to address that? Leonard Ashcroft stood quickly. Your Honor, we'll need time to investigate these allegations. You'll have time, but not with access to marital funds. Judge Nakamura's gavel came down hard. I'm issuing an immediate freeze on all accounts and assets associated with Mr. Blackwood, pending full disclosure and forensic review. I'm appointing a special master to investigate the full extent of marital property. Mr. Blackwood, if I find you've been systematically defrauding this court and your wife, you'll face serious consequences. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Your Honor, Marcus said, his voice barely audible. Mrs. Blackwood is awarded temporary spousal support of $12,000 per month, effective immediately. Mr. Blackwood is barred from selling, transferring, or encumbering any assets. This court is adjourned pending the special master's report. As we left the courtroom, I heard Marcus hiss at his lawyer. How did she know? How did she find all of this? I didn't look back, but I smiled. Word spread through Ashford Hills like wildfire. The perfect Marcus Blackwood, caught hiding $22 million from his wife. The scandal was delicious. Helena called that evening, barely containing her glee. Victoria, honey, you should see it. The country club is in absolute chaos. Half the wives are suddenly very interested in their family finances. Constance hasn't shown her face in public since the hearing. And Marcus? She laughed. Marcus tried to play golf yesterday and got politely asked to leave. Membership requires full financial disclosure, apparently. How do you know all this? Because I went to the club specifically to watch. Even paid the guest fee. Best entertainment I've had in years. Despite everything, I laughed. But the real chaos came 2 days later when Rachel Foster delivered news I'd expected, but dreaded. The FBI has opened an investigation, she said, sitting in my living room in Riverside. Billing fraud. Possibly wire fraud. Potential RICO charges if they can prove conspiracy with other attorneys at his firm. They want to interview you. Victoria, there's something else. She pulled out her tablet, showed me a news article. The headline read, Prominent attorney and mother under federal investigation for systematic client fraud. Barbara. They were investigating Constance, too. She's been involved in the firm's finances for decades, Rachel explained. The billing records show her signature on hundreds of fraudulent invoices. There's no way she didn't know. My mother-in-law, 97 years old, facing federal charges. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt tired. What happens now? You cooperate fully with the FBI. Provide all your documentation. They'll likely offer you immunity in exchange for testimony. Marcus and Constance will try to negotiate plea deals. If they don't, this goes to trial. I met with the FBI the next day. 2 agents, Special Agent Lisa Chen and Special Agent Robert Martinez, spent 4 hours going through everything I documented. Mrs. Blackwood, Agent Chen said at the end, you've done more investigative work than most people we encounter. This documentation is extraordinary. I had good teachers, I said, thinking of Helena and Simone and my mother. We'll need you to testify if this goes to trial. Are you prepared for that? Yes. Your husband will likely try to claim you were complicit or knew about the fraud. We need to establish that you were deliberately kept in the dark. I was kept in the dark about everything, I said. That was the point of our marriage. To keep me small and ignorant and dependent. Agent Martinez looked at me with something like respect. Well, you're none of those things now. If you feel my words touching something true inside you, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Tell me which city you're listening from. I need to know how far a woman's voice can travel when she stops whispering and starts speaking her truth. Help me build this community so we can bring more stories like this. Stories that might save someone's life before 48 years pass. Because it's never too late, but earlier is better. The chaos escalated quickly. Within a week, the media descended. Prominent Ashford Hills attorney accused of massive fraud screamed the headlines. Camera crews camped outside the Blackwood estate. Marcus's firm placed him on indefinite leave. Clients started filing complaints with the state bar. Marcus called me 17 times in 3 days. I didn't answer. His voicemails progressed from angry to desperate. Victoria, this is ridiculous. Call me back. You're destroying everything over a misunderstanding. My attorney says you have property that belongs to me. That's theft. Return it immediately or face charges. Please, Victoria, please. My career is over. My reputation is destroyed. Haven't you punished me enough? I saved every message, evidence of his state of mind, his priorities. Even facing criminal charges, he was thinking about his reputation, not the people he'd hurt. Constance's response was different. She hired her own attorney immediately and threw Marcus under the bus. Claimed she was just following her son's instructions, that she didn't understand legal billing, that she was a confused elderly woman being manipulated. The FBI didn't buy it. The email records I'd provided showed Constance had been actively involved in structuring the fraud, suggesting ways to inflate bills, coaching Marcus on how to justify the charges. Sophia finally called me 3 weeks after I'd left Ashford Hills. Mom? Her voice was small, young. Can we talk? We met at a park halfway between Riverside and her home in the suburbs. My daughter, 39 years old, looked exhausted. I'm sorry, she said immediately, for taking grandmother's side, for not seeing what Dad was doing to you, for not being there when you needed me. Sophia, no, let me finish. I saw Isabel at the house last week. She was wearing your jewelry, sleeping in your room, and I realized that could have been me. If I'd married someone like Dad, I could have ended up exactly where you did. And you escaped. At 68, you escaped. I pulled my daughter into my arms, felt her shake with tears. Teach me, she whispered. Teach me how to be like you. How to be strong. Oh, baby, I'm not strong. I'm just tired of being small. We sat on that bench for hours, talking like we hadn't in years. She told me about problems in her own marriage. Not abuse, but control, dismissiveness, the slow erosion that I knew too well. I told her about Helena, about learning to build a life in secret, about choosing yourself even when it feels impossible. Whatever happens at the trial, Sophia said finally, I'm on your side, publicly. I'll testify if they need me to. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. For you and for myself. 6 weeks after Marcus threw my belongings on the lawn, I sat in Patricia's office, reviewing the final divorce settlement proposal. Marcus, facing federal charges and financial ruin, had finally agreed to negotiate. His new attorney, the fourth one after 3 quit, had sent over terms. "They're offering you 65% of documented assets," Patricia said. "Approximately $16 million. Plus the Ashford Hills house, which you can sell. Plus Marcus pays all your legal fees. In exchange, you agree not to testify against him at the criminal trial unless subpoenaed." I laughed. Actually laughed. He still thinks he can control the narrative. "The FBI doesn't need your testimony to convict him," Patricia said. "They have the documents, the records, everything. But your testimony would make it airtight. Probably mean the difference between a 10-year sentence and a 20-year one." I looked out Patricia's window at the city I'd lived in, invisible for so long. "I'll take the 65%, but no agreement about testimony. I'll cooperate with the FBI fully. He doesn't get to silence me ever again." Patricia grinned. "I was hoping you'd say that." The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning, 6 months after Marcus had discarded me. Judge Nakamura presided, and her final words stayed with me. "Mrs. Blackwood, in my 30 years on the bench, I've seen too many women like you. Intelligent, capable women who were systematically erased by their partners. I'm gratified to see you not only survived, but prevailed. You've set an example for every woman who thinks it's too late to reclaim her life." Marcus sat at his table, diminished. He'd lost 30 pounds. His hair had gone completely gray, and he looked every one of his 73 years. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he stood. "Victoria," he said, not looking at his attorney, "I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. I took your trust, your youth, your dreams, and I threw them away because I was too arrogant to see their value. I'm sorry. Too little, too late. But it was something." "Marcus," I said, standing, "I forgive you. Not for your sake, for mine. Because I refuse to carry the weight of your choices anymore." Then I walked out of that courtroom a free woman. The criminal trial began 4 months after the divorce was finalized. United States v. Marcus James Blackwood and Constance Elizabeth Blackwood. 73 counts of fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. I wasn't required to testify. The FBI had built their case on documents and testimony from Marcus's former employees. But I chose to attend, not for revenge, but for closure. The courthouse was packed. Media crews, former clients who'd been defrauded, legal community members watching one of their own fall. Marcus had aged another decade. He sat at the defense table in a suit that hung loose, staring at nothing. Constance sat separately with her own attorney, still trying the confused elderly woman defense that wasn't working. The trial lasted 5 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Billing records showing inflated charges, phantom hours, services never rendered. Email exchanges between Marcus and Constance discussing how to maximize billing without getting caught. Testimony from clients who'd trusted Marcus with their most important legal matters and been systematically robbed. The most devastating testimony came from Elena Rodriguez, a former client whose immigration case Marcus had handled. "I paid Mr. Blackwood $50,000 to handle my family's immigration case," she said, her voice steady despite tears. "He told me it was complex, would require extensive work. The billing records show he charged for over 200 hours. My new attorney reviewed the file. There was maybe 30 hours of actual work done. Marcus billed me for work he never did while my children's future hung in the balance." Marcus stared at the table, but I saw his hands shaking. On the 32nd day of trial, the prosecution called an unexpected witness, Isabelle Laurent. She walked to the stand in a simple gray dress, hands trembling. Marcus's eyes followed her with something between fear and betrayal. "Ms. Laurent," the prosecutor began, "what was your relationship with Mr. Blackwood?" "I was his employee and his girlfriend for 4 years. "And during that time, did he discuss his billing practices with you?" Isabelle looked directly at Marcus. "Yes, he bragged about it, called it maximizing revenue, said clients were too stupid to check bills carefully. That they trusted him, so he could charge whatever he wanted. Did you report this? No, I was afraid. He was powerful, senior partner. I was nobody. Her voice broke. But then I met his wife, Victoria, the woman I'd helped hurt. And I realized, if I didn't speak up, I was as guilty as he was. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. On count 1, wire fraud, how do you find? Guilty. On count 2, billing fraud, how do you find? Guilty. 73 times, guilty. Marcus's face crumbled. Constance made a sound, half sob, half gasp. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. The sentencing hearing was smaller. Most media had moved on, but the victims were there. Former clients, people whose lives Marcus had affected. The prosecution requested 25 to 30 years for Marcus, 15 to 20 for Constance. Marcus's attorney presented mitigating factors: his decades of legal service, his charitable contributions, his age and declining health. Then the judge allowed victim impact statements. 7 people spoke, each one a life damaged by Marcus's greed. And Judge Catherine Wu asked if I wanted to make a statement. I stood, walked to the podium, faced Marcus for what I knew would be the last time. Your Honor, my name is Victoria Elaine Morrison. I was married to Marcus Blackwood for 48 years. I'm not here to talk about the fraud against his clients, though it matters enormously. I'm here to talk about a different kind of theft. Marcus didn't just steal money from clients. He stole years from me. He stole my career when he convinced me to give up law school. He stole my confidence when he told me I wasn't smart enough to understand finances. He stole my identity when he isolated me from friends and family. He stole my sense of worth when he spent 48 years making me feel invisible. 6 months ago, I stood on a lawn with my belongings scattered like garbage and realized I'd been robbed more thoroughly than any of his clients. Not of money, of myself. But here's what Marcus didn't understand. You can't permanently steal what someone chooses to reclaim. At 68 years old, I chose to take back my life. I looked directly at Marcus. You thought I was too old, too dependent, too broken to fight back. That was your fatal mistake. Every woman you thought was invisible, your wife, your mistress, your female employees, your female clients, we all saw you clearly. And in the end, we're the ones who brought the truth to light. I hope prison gives you time to understand that the people you dismiss are often the most dangerous, not because we're cruel, but because we have nothing left to lose once you've taken everything. The courtroom was silent as I sat down. Judge Wu spoke. Mr. Blackwood, please stand. Marcus stood, leaning heavily on the defense table. You've heard from your victims. You've heard from your ex-wife. I've reviewed your case extensively. While I acknowledge your age, the scope and duration of your crimes demand significant consequences. On counts 1 through 73, I sentence you to 12 years in federal prison. Upon release, you will be on supervised probation for 5 years. You will pay restitution totaling $6.2 million to affected clients. Your law license is permanently revoked. 12 years. Marcus would be 85 when released, if he survived. Mrs. Blackwood, please stand. Constance rose slowly, her attorney supporting her elbow. Mrs. Blackwood, as co-conspirator, you enabled these crimes for 2 decades. However, given your age and health, I sentence you to 5 years house arrest, followed by 5 years probation. You will pay restitution jointly with your son. All assets from Blackwood Holdings will be liquidated to fund these payments. 5 years house arrest meant losing everything: her social standing, her clubs, her carefully cultivated image. The gavel fell. It was over. 1 year after leaving Ashford Hills, I stood in a small office downtown, looking at a sign being installed on the door. The Mei Chen Foundation, Empowering Women's Financial Independence. Named after my mother, who'd saved for 60 years just in case, who'd taught me by example that every woman needed her own resources, her own escape route, her own power. We'd launched 6 months ago with money from my divorce settlement. Already we'd helped 93 women document assets, build escape funds, and find their independence. My doorbell rang, the foundation office. Through the glass, I saw familiar faces. Helena Vasquez, my first teacher. Simone Hayes, my oldest friend. Patricia Kenji, my attorney turned friend, Rachel Foster, who'd helped uncover Marcus's crimes. And new faces. Women I was teaching now, the way Helena had taught me. Ready for the ribbon cutting? Helena asked, grinning. More than ready. The ceremony was small but meaningful. Local media, some city officials, women from the community. Alexander came with his family. Sophia came with her daughter, my granddaughter Emma, who at 16 was already fierce and certain of herself, in ways I'd never been. I cut the ribbon and gave a short speech. This foundation exists because my mother knew something essential. Every woman needs her own power, her own money, her own skills, her own identity. For too long, women have been taught that depending on someone else is safety. But real safety comes from knowing you can take care of yourself. If you're in a golden cage, know this: the door is never as locked as you think. You have more power than you've been told. You're stronger than you've been made to feel. And it's never, ever too late to reclaim your life. I started planning my escape at 65. I left at 68. I'm 70 now, and these have been the best 2 years of my life. Not because everything is easy, but because every single thing is mine. Afterward, a woman approached me. Mid-50s, well-dressed, expensive handbag. The kind of woman who looked like she had everything. Ms. Morrison, I saw your interview on the news. I think I need help, but I'm not sure I qualify. My husband hasn't hit me or anything. He just controls everything. I guided her inside, sat her down in our consultation room with its comfortable chairs and warm lighting. Tell me your story, I said, and as she talked, I heard echoes of my own life. The gradual erosion, the isolation, the golden cage. And I knew exactly how to help her, because I'd walked that same path. This is what I do now. I listen to women's stories. I teach them about documentation, about building secret savings, about reclaiming power slowly and carefully. I connect them with attorneys, accountants, therapists. I remind them they're not crazy, not ungrateful, not too old. Marcus writes to me monthly from federal prison. I don't respond, but I read the letters. They've changed over time. Month 3. The appeal was denied. My attorney says there's no path forward. This is really happening. Month 8. I've been attending a program here for men who've been abusive. The counselor asked me to list people I'd hurt. I filled 6 pages and only covered the first 10 years of our marriage. Month 14. I saw a video of you speaking about the foundation. You look happy. Actually happy. I don't remember ever seeing you look that way when you were with me. I think I finally understand what I destroyed. The letters aren't asking for forgiveness anymore. They're his own reckoning, his own awakening. I keep them in a box, a record of transformation too late to matter, but happening nonetheless. Constance died 8 months into her house arrest, heart failure, according to Sophia. I attended the funeral, not for Constance, but for my children who'd lost their grandmother. It was a small service. Many of her society friends abandoned her after the scandal. I stood in the back, watching people who'd once envied her life, now pitying her ending. After the service, I found myself alone at her graveside. Looked down at the expensive casket, thought about this woman who'd spent 97 years being afraid to work, to have her own money, to be anything beyond someone's wife or mother, and how that fear had curdled into cruelty toward anyone who threatened her carefully constructed world. I'm sorry you never learned to be free. I'm sorry you never knew who you could have been. Then I walked away, back to my life, my work, my freedom. 2 years after everything exploded, the foundation had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. 3 full-time staff, 20 volunteers, offices in 2 cities. We'd helped 247 women take the first steps toward independence. I was working late one evening when Helena stopped by, bringing Chinese takeout. You know, she said, unpacking containers in my office, when I first met you 5 years ago, you were so scared, so certain you couldn't survive on your own. Look at you now. I looked around my office, walls covered with thank you notes from women we'd helped, photos of workshops and training sessions, news articles about the foundation's work. I was terrified, I admitted. Every single day for 3 years I was terrified, but I kept moving forward anyway. That's the definition of courage, Helena said. Not the absence of fear, the refusal to let fear make your decisions. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya, the rideshare driver who'd driven me away from Ashford Hills. She'd graduated law school and was now clerking for a federal judge. Guess who just got offered a position at Legal Aid? Thanks for the reference. I'm going to help people the way you helped me see that women can start over at any age. I showed Helena the text, felt tears prick my eyes. This is what it's about, Helena said. Not just saving ourselves, but showing other women they can save themselves too. You've created a legacy, Victoria. A legacy. For 48 years, I thought my legacy would be being Marcus Blackwood's wife, mother to his children, caretaker of his image. Now my legacy was helping women escape their own golden cages before 48 years passed. I'm 72 years old now. 4 years since Marcus threw my belongings on a lawn. 4 years since I walked away from my beautiful prison. People ask me if I'm angry. The truth is, I don't think about him much anymore. Anger requires caring, and I simply don't. He's in prison, facing the consequences of his choices. I'm free, living the life I was always meant to live. Sometimes I think about the woman I was at 25. Ambitious, passionate, full of dreams about making a difference in the world. I mourned that woman for years, thought she died when I married Marcus. But she didn't die. She was just sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake up. I run a foundation that's helped hundreds of women reclaim their lives. I work with attorneys and accountants and therapists. I speak at conferences about financial abuse and domestic control. I'm writing a book about my experience, hoping it reaches women who think it's too late. I have friends, real friends who know the real me, not the performing wife I used to be. I have a relationship with my children based on truth instead of pretense. I have a home that's mine, filled with things I chose because I liked them, not because they met someone else's standards. My life is smaller than it was in Ashford Hills. No mansion, no country club, no society galas. But it's bigger in every way that matters. It's mine. If you're listening to this from your own golden cage, and I know some of you are, here's what I need you to understand. You're not too old, you're not too dependent, you're not too far gone. You're exactly the right age to begin again. I was 65 when I started planning, 68 when I left, 70 when I started the foundation. I could live another 20 years. That's 20 years of freedom, of purpose, of living for myself instead of someone else. The world tells women we have expiration dates, that after a certain age we're supposed to be grateful for whatever scraps we're given. That's a lie designed to keep us compliant. You don't expire. You don't become worthless. You don't lose your right to dignity, respect, and self-determination just because you've passed some arbitrary age. Start small if you need to. Open a bank account he doesn't know about. Save $10 a week. Take an online course. Reach out to an old friend. Document one asset. Just one step, then another, then another. Build your escape route slowly if that's all you can do. Because your life is not over until you decide it's over. And if you're young, watching this and thinking it doesn't apply to you, learn from my mistakes. Don't give up your career because someone says it's not necessary. Don't isolate yourself from friends because your partner is uncomfortable. Don't let anyone convince you that their success matters more than your identity. Keep your own money, keep your own skills, keep your own self. The cage is always easier to escape before you've been locked inside for 48 years. My name is Victoria Elaine Morrison. I'm 72 years old. For 48 years, I lived in a beautiful prison. For 4 years, I've been free. And every single day of freedom is worth every single year of captivity. I just had to be brave enough to open it. Now I spend my days helping other women find their keys. Because the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building a life so full that they become irrelevant. It's using what was meant to break you as the foundation for something stronger. Marcus tried to erase me. Instead, He gave me a reason to make sure I could never be erased again. He tried to make me small. Instead, he gave me a story that could help other women refuse to shrink. That's the thing about trying to destroy someone who has nothing left to lose. Sometimes you just give them the courage to rebuild everything. I wake up every morning in my little house in Riverside, make coffee in my kitchen, tend my garden, go to work helping women find their power, have dinner with friends who actually know me, talk to my children about real things, play with my grandchildren, and tell them stories about being brave. This is my life now. Small, quiet, purposeful, mine. And I wouldn't trade it for all the mansions in Ashford Hills. If you feel my words in your bones, if you see yourself in my story, if you're sitting in your own golden cage wondering if it's too late, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Tell me which city you're listening from. Let me know how far a woman's voice can travel when she finally decides to speak her truth. Help me build this community so we can bring more stories that matter, stories that might save someone's life. Because it's never too late to choose yourself. But earlier is better. The rest of us are already free. We're waiting to welcome you home.